Happy New Year, friends! I am so excited to be back here with you after a little brief pause during the holiday season. I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'm excited to be back here in 2023, bringing you hopefully more videos than I brought last year. As we are getting ready to dive in here, I want to take a quick second to say welcome. If you are new here, my name is Amanda Willis, and I empower families to wellness authentically through biblically rooted principles. I love, like I said, to share with you what that looks like practically. And today I want to talk about grinding wheat, milling your own wheat and grains at home, and why I am super passionate about that. So part of my health journey, if you guys have been around this channel for a while, then you know this, and if not, feel free to jump back into some of the older videos and do a quick search on my channel, and you will see that I have walked through quite a health journey over the years. And I battled with chronic Lyme, and I had all sorts of things that I dealt with naturally. And through that, I have kind of tried all different styles of eating, if you will. I tried going paleo. I tried doing a Whole30. Oh, I felt terrible on Whole30, and no, it was not a detox thing, because I had already done plenty of detox, and I know what detox symptoms feel like. This was my body and my adrenals tanking, but that's neither here nor there. I thought I did really well on Paleo Primal, and I did for a short season. I felt really good on that for a short season. And there are times, and you will hear me caveat all day long, I'm going to be talking about the rule, not the exception. There are times in health journeys when you need to cut things out. But a lot of times we feel good on these kind of fad diets, or not even fad diets, because I know paleo would argue that it's been around for years, those kind of things. But we feel good on them for a short period of time. But when we cut out entire food groups that God created for us to consume, we don't tend to function well long term. And that's because we were designed and created by God to be consuming grains now in their proper form. And that is something that we have lost in our culture today. It is coming back, and I'm excited to see a resurgence of this, but in properly preparing grains, either in sprouting them, soaking them, or sour leavening them, because all grains contain an enzyme called phytic acid. Phytic acid is an enzyme inhibitor, and your enzyme inhibitor prohibits your enzymes, the enzymes in the food because it's prohibiting the seed from sprouting before conditions are right. That's why it was there. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. However, then when we consume that, it strips minerals from the body, it inhibits the ability of the body to be able to digest it well, and you end up with all sorts of inflammation and things. Also, most of our grains these days are getting sprayed like crazy, on the mainstream grains, and even a lot of organic and non-GMO grains end up getting glyphosate some way or another. So it's the wind's carrying them, all things are happening. And so you're getting exposure to things that also cause inflammation. And it's those additional things, not the grain itself, that's inherently bad. Also, today's modern wheat has been hybridized over and over and over again. So I am super passionate about using ancient wheats. However, in our kitchen recently, we've actually been using just more your standard red wheat and white wheats, simply because of one, price, and two, simplicity. We are in Wyoming, and we are at altitude. We moved from the Front Range of Colorado, where we were also at altitude, about similar altitudes. So we're about a mile high, between 5,000 and 6,000 feet, depending on where in the city that you're at. And so with that altitude factor, that brings in a whole nother figuring out your breads and having consumable breads, which my husband will tell you, when we first moved from Atlanta to Colorado, I had been baking bread, and I was baking with einkorn, and I had I had a lot of success with einkorn sourdough, and it was super simple, and I had just followed recipes, and I was following recipes, and we were getting bricks in Colorado. And then I was following the recipe and trying to adjust for altitude and getting bricks in Colorado. It got to the point where he said, can we please start getting bread from the store? Which is really sad, because when you know how good homemade bread tastes, to start getting it from the store, and especially when you have dreams of milling your own wheat, which we are getting to, then it's really heartbreaking when your husband says, please don't make bread. And so instead of, I obliged, but instead of sulking and pouting and getting upset about it, I decided, okay, I need to learn some bread making skills, because clearly what I knew in Atlanta is not enough to get me through in the Denver area or now in Casper. So I need to learn skills. So I enrolled in a bread making class through Carolyn Thomas from Homesteading Family. Fantastic, teaches you the art of homemade bread, how to read your dough, all the differences with the temperature fluctuations, barometric pressure. You don't have to know exactly how those impact your dough if you know how to read your dough, and you know how to reach proper flour saturation just by reading the dough. So helpful. I backtracked off of my ancient grains to get consistent results, because when you start working with ancient grains, it is different. So I have a whole bunch of bulk grains of regular red we have hard red and then hard white wheat right now. I do have einkorn on hand. I have some spelt on hand. And so now that we are back into regular bread making, I've got consistent sourdough sandwich loaves coming out. We've got consistent bagels and consistency and things like that. I am going to start getting back towards the ancient wheats. So as you get towards them, you do get a little bit simpler of a grain to digest. So if you find yourself struggling to digest wheat, even if it's sour leavened, then you may want to lean more towards something like a spelt or an einkorn of that, or an emmer or something like that. They are, like I said, a little bit more finicky. It takes some more adjusting, but they're still fantastic, and they lend themselves really well to the traditional preparation of sour leavening. Now, milling your own flour is a great step to take. It sounds time intensive. Friends, I promise you, it's not. If you have a grain mill like this, now I used to have an attachment that came onto my KitchenAid. I'll talk about why I love the grain mill so much more. But all you do is take your lid off, make sure you have a bowl underneath to catch your grain as it comes out. You are going to flip the switch on. I'm not going to do it while I'm talking so that you can hear me. You flip the switch on, you pour your grain into the top, and then this here adjusts the coarseness. Then you can adjust how coarse you want it. You want to turn it on first so that it's milling and nothing gets stuck down in there. But friends, it's literally as simple as turn it on, dump, and you get flour. You're not sitting there grinding it yourself, though I do have a hand crank mill on my wish list for emergencies and any power outages or anything. I would love to have that on hand as a backup too. But this is a cabinet. This grain mill here is the NutriMill Harvest, and it grinds all kinds of grains. So anything that's non-oily, it even grinds beans that are non-oily and seeds. So I can put together an Ezekiel bread, and I can sprout the Ezekiel flour, dehydrate it. If you sprout flours, you do want to make sure they are dehydrated fully before you grind them, because if they're too soft, it will ruin your grain mill. So you want them dehydrated fully, but then you can grind your own Ezekiel flour sprouted. Let's talk about why. Why do you want to grind your own wheat berries? Number one, the flavor, friends, so much better. But number two, okay, maybe that's number two, but I'm a foodie, so is my husband. We really like food that tastes good. When you have flour that you have fresh milled, there is no flavor like it. It's kind of like if you grow a vegetable garden and you pull a carrot straight out of the ground, or potatoes straight off of the ground, or a tomato straight off of the vine, there is no flavor of anything in the store that comes close to it. The flavor is fantastic, but the nutrition is also so much higher in your milled in your fresh milled grains. Because as soon as you crack that grain, as soon as the stones in here start grinding and that grain cracks open, the grain starts to oxidize. It's just like the second you cut an apple, it's going to turn brown. The same thing, as soon as you crack that grain and turn it into flour, it's going to start oxidizing, which means the nutrition value is slowly going to start to dissipate. Now, once you mill it at home, it is good for 3 days on the counter at room temperature, 3 weeks in the refrigerator, or 3 months in the freezer. So if you want to get ahead and grind some, you can. Now, I will say that grinding in this, which I got for Christmas, and so it's been such a blessing because I have been milling our own wheat, but in the KitchenAid attachment, it's workable if you have a small space and don't have room for a mill on your counter and only have space to store the attachment, whether it's on your KitchenAid or somewhere else in a cabinet. It works. It's functional. You cannot grind as many varieties of things in it. It is a small hopper and the motor of your KitchenAid will get hot very quickly. So I found I had to do things in small batches. To fill a bowl this size would take me several hours with the KitchenAid because I would let it go till I could smell the motor and I would feel the back of my KitchenAid and see when it was hot. And when it was hot, I'd turn it off, let it cool all the way down, then flip it back on again. That usually took about 45 minutes to an hour before I could flip it back on again. And it usually would grind for about 20 minutes before it started doing that. So little bitty batches were happening and I'd have to really plan ahead to get my flour. With the NutriMill, I ground a great big bowl of flour the other day in about 5 minutes. It was fantastic. It was about twice the size of that bowl I just showed you and it ground so fast, so fine. It was beautiful. It's not quiet because the stones are grinding when you get a fine flour, but it is beautiful. It also doesn't heat up very high to help maintain the nutritional value of the grain. The next reason I want to share is, of course, cost. Friends, I know food prices everywhere are going up, right? Even the price of whole wheat berries is going up. However, your cost of whole wheat berries is still way cheaper than your cost of flour. And especially if you buy it in bulk. So if you buy your wheat berries in bulk, which we started getting just maybe like little 2.5 and 5 pound bags of wheat berries from natural grocers, that's where we went. That's where we got them. That's what we had the margin to do to start. Then we started, as we were building our bulk food storage, because we're working to live more prepared, then we were able to slowly build up to, okay, this time we're going to get a 10 pound bag. Okay, this time I'm going to get a 25 pound bag. Till we started buying 50 pound bags of wheat berries and we store them in 5-gallon buckets down in our food storage room. So, and where our big pantry is essentially. And that has worked out really well for us. The price per ounce goes way down when you do that. And the last benefit is your shelf life. When you are storing wheat berries, when stored properly, which is out of light and out of oxygen, also you want to be sure with wheat berries and any whole grains that you are either freezing them or using diatomaceous earth. So you either want to put your bag when you get it in the freezer for 3 days and then take it out, allow it to come all the way back up to room temperature so there's no condensation or anything in the bag, then put that in your bucket. Or go ahead and open it, dump that whole bucket in there and mix in some diatomaceous earth in there. All your whole grains are going to have insect eggs mixed in with them somewhere. It's just part of nature, especially when you're using organic stuff. You don't want them to hatch and ruin your investment. So if you freeze them, that kills all the eggs. You have no worries of them hatching if you freeze them for at least 3 days. Or if you use the diatomaceous earth, if anything hatches, it's taken care of right away and you'll never know. Plus diatomaceous earth is good for you, so use the food grade stuff. It'll be a health benefit as well. So when those are stored properly like that, they practically last forever. So you don't have to worry about the shelf life and the nutrition value, and you know, am I using it fast enough? They're great for preparedness reasons. You can also consume wheat berries whole, so you don't have to grind them into a flour. Now, you can't eat them raw, you need to cook them, but you can kind of make like a pilaf with them, or a porridge. Kind of like using steel cut oats, right? Real thick and heavy, but it's a great side dish. You can prepare them in all different ways. I hope I have convinced you to mill your own flours. If you have questions about milling your own flour, please pop them into the comments below. I would love to help answer your questions. If you have any concerns, is there something, you know, that I haven't thought of addressing? I was trying to think of the common questions that I'm asked when I share about it. But if there's anything else that is a concern or a question in your mind, please let me know below. I would love to answer it for you and get you started grinding your own grains as well. Because friend, once you start, you won't go back. Until next time, take care, friends. Cheers.